Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for Tax Season 2021 Question and Answer Session Part 2. My name is Connor Blay, and today you all have another chance to get your tax return questions answered by an expert prior to the May 17th federal deadline. So get your tax season questions ready, and please send them in the comments throughout the live stream. Now it's my pleasure to welcome back our special guest, Neil Duffy from Sprint Tax, who will be answering your questions today. Hi, Neil. How are you?
Hi, Connor. I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. We're so happy to have you with us again today. Thanks for joining. I just want to start
Happy
off.
to be here.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So I just wanted to start off by reminding our audience that if you would like some personalized help with filing your tax return this season, we've linked our tax section in the comments. There you can find more information on how Sprint Tax can help you. Now, I have some questions prepared for you, Neil, and then we'll be turning to some questions from our viewers. So the first question I have is, who needs to file and what forms need to be completed and mailed to the IRS?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing to note is that everybody that's been in the US during 2020 as a non-resident has some sort of filing obligation. And that applies even if you had no income, you were just here for a couple of days on your F1 visa, and maybe it was even just 2 days. That's enough to actually trigger a requirement to file Form 8843. And Form 8843 is the minimum document that everyone needs to file. And again, as I mentioned, you just need to be here for 1 day during 2020 to file that form. So that's kind of the first piece. After that, then, if you start to earn any US income during 2020, you'll then trigger other filing requirements. So if you earn over $0 in 2020, because that's the threshold, it's $0, you'll then trigger a federal filing requirement. And when you trigger a federal filing requirement, the form you need to submit is Form 1040-NR. Now, just a quick note to say that in previous years, if you submitted a federal return, you may have been given Form 1040-NR-EZ. But just a note to say that form has been discontinued by the IRS, so now everything is covered under the 1040-NR. So just so students aren't concerned when they see they're getting a different form this year compared to last year. The third piece to that question then is the state taxes piece. And we mentioned Form 8843, we mentioned federal, but there are also rules for each state. And the rules vary from state to state, so I can't go into it in too much detail. But essentially, once you go through the Sprint Tax software, you will be able to enter all of your information, the states that you lived in, and then the software will tell you exactly which states you've triggered a filing requirement for, if any. And when it comes to state tax, is really based on...
Neil, can you hear me? All right, it seems we've lost Neil. All right, let me go ahead and try and bring him back in here. I'm just going to reset this. Neil, can you hear me? Oh, no, that's okay. Not your fault. So you're back now. I can hear you okay.
Perfect.
I think you were just you were talking about state deadlines and how those affect students.
Yeah, so the last piece then is really just on the state side. So once you have put your information into Sprint Tax, we'll tell you what state tax returns are applicable. And it's really based on a whole host of different factors like the visa type you're on, the number of days you've spent in each state, whether you've moved to the state or not during the year. So there's a couple of different factors.
Right. All right, excellent. So you answered this a little bit with that, but do you know which states off the top of your head have different deadlines for filing?
Yeah, so there are 4 different states with different deadlines in comparison to the extended deadline of May the 17th. And those states are Hawaii, Iowa, Maryland, and Oklahoma. So Hawaii is April the 20th, Iowa is June the 1st, Maryland is July the 15th, and then Oklahoma is June the 15th.
Perfect. All right. And just to follow up on that previous question, what should students do if they've missed their state filing deadline?
So there's always a way to catch up. So even if you've missed the deadline, even if it's a couple of days or even if it's a couple of years, it's important that you do catch up as soon as possible. And you can always do that online with Sprintax up to the last 3 years. And the IRS will actually provide you with a refund if you're due one up to the last 3 years. But obviously, if you owe the IRS money, there's no cutoff, and it's important to get that submitted and get that corrected as soon as possible.
All right. Perfect. So when using Sprintax, how do students submit their documents to the IRS once they've completed the Sprintax questionnaire?
So there's 2 ways really. For Form 8843, if it's standalone, you'll always need to mail it. For your state documents, you'll always need to physically mail them as well. But for federal, this year we've launched federal e-filing. And this is pretty exciting for us because it's the first time we've been able to offer e-file for certain federal returns. Now, not everybody will be able to e-file their federal return. The IRS do have certain rules, such as you need a social security number, and there's a couple of other factors. But once you go through the Sprintax software, if you're eligible to e-file your federal, we'll tell you at checkout, and that will make things a lot easier, and that should mean your refund is processed a lot faster.
Excellent. All right. That's really cool that you can e-file now. That's really convenient. Just one last question, and then we'll get to our viewer questions. Keep sending them in the comments. For all of our viewers today and those who watch later on, Sprintax is still offering $5 off of its services. Neil, can you share what that discount code is?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We can add it in here. So that discount code, just so everyone knows, will give you $5 off your federal tax preparation. So if you enter that at checkout, you'll see the discount apply. So I would say definitely take advantage of that if you are going to use Sprintax for your taxes.
Definitely. And that's on your screen right now. So go ahead and jot that down or just take a screenshot. And then we're going to answer some questions from our viewers. We've got a few coming in right now. Let me take this off. So the first question we have comes from Adon. I'm an international student who came here January 2019, and I wanted to know what my residency status is as of right now. Thank you.
So I wouldn't be able to tell them straight out what your residency status is, but I'll give you an outline of what the rules are. Generally, if you're on an F1 or a J1 student visa, for your first 5 calendar years here in the US, you're considered a non-resident for tax purposes. And after you go past that 5-year period then, so year 6, the IRS look at what's known as the substantial presence test, which is essentially a maths equation that looks at the last 3 years you've spent in the US. And if your total days of presence equate to 183 days, you'll then be a resident for tax purposes. That sounds very confusing. Don't get too caught up on that explanation. Sprintax offers a free tool to find out if you're a resident or a non-resident. So the easiest way to figure that question out is to register an account, fill out step 1, and on step 1, we'll ask you for your entry and exit dates. And once you give us your entry and exit dates, we can then tell you if you're a resident or a non-resident for tax purposes. If you're a non-resident, you can move on to step 2. If you're a resident, we'll stop the process, advise you you're a resident, and then advise you need to use a different software provider like TurboTax, because TurboTax is only for residents.
All right, perfect. The next question we have is from Layla. If I have a savings account that generates some sort of interest, does that count as as if I'm making income. Also, if I'm receiving income from my home, or excuse me, from my home country to pay for my tuition and living expenses, does that count as income?
So the good news is that any interest that you make as a non-resident on a regular checking or savings account is not subject to tax. And that's kind of a rule that the IRS have for non-residents. And the second question, so in terms of money being received from overseas, and again, I'm presuming this particular comment is from a non-resident. If you're a non-resident and you're here in the US and you're receiving funds from outside the US, that's considered foreign source income. And as a non-resident, that's not taxable in the US. Now, if you're a resident, all of your worldwide income may be taxable. But looking at just non-residents, your parents or relatives can transfer you money. You can bring money over with you and put it into your savings account if you earned it outside the US. All of that is perfectly fine without triggering a non-resident filing requirement.
All right, great. So the next question we have is from Sean Ed. Must the W-2 form be physically attached when mailing the 1040NR form? Thank you for your assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. So the W-2 form is an income document. It'll give a summary of all the information and all the income that the student has earned throughout the year. So it might be a W-2, it could be a 1042S, or it could be a 1099 variation. They're the kind of three main income documents. If you're submitting a federal or state tax return, you'll always need to submit a copy of those documents. So they'll need to go into the envelope if you're mailing it, and you'll need to physically send them in.
All right, excellent. So the next question we have is, once I file Form 8840, I think they mean 8843, I need to file something else? I don't fully understand the difference between federal, state, and local taxes.
So again, that's kind of a question that I wouldn't be able to answer fully for this particular user, just because I don't know the full situation. I don't know if they've earned any income. But what I will say is, use SprintTax. Again, you don't pay until checkout. If you're not sure what your filing requirements are, you can go on, fill in the online questionnaire, and we'll tell you if you've triggered just Form 8843, if it's a federal or if it's a state. Just in terms of the Form 8843, if you didn't earn any income in 2020, so you were just present in the US on your visa, then that would be just Form 8843. You would only submit a federal or state tax return if you've actually earned US income and you've met the state filing thresholds and you've earned over $0 in US income for the federal side of things.
Right. All right. So, let's see. Do we have any other questions? If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and send them in. But those were some great questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on for now if we don't have any more. And thank you guys for sending those questions in. We're so glad you guys could all join us today, and we hope you were able to get your questions answered. If you didn't get your questions answered, we'd like to remind you that we've linked our tax section in the comments. There you will find tax filing steps, answers to frequently asked questions, our Form 8843 wizard, and more information about SprintTax services. Thank you again for being here today, Neil, and we really appreciate your expertise. Is there anything you would like to add before we go?
No, I think that kind of covers everything. I think we'll keep an eye on the comments anyway for the next couple of hours, and if anything does come in, we're happy to go back and provide an answer.
Exactly. We're happy to go ahead and answer any comments that come in after we sign off here. I'm going to go ahead and show the $5 off discount code one more time for you guys. There it is. Thanks, Neil, again, and thanks to our audience. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.